Hi guys, welcome back to our Rest API Jwt Authentication series. Picking up right from where we stop, we are going to start implementing the front-end part for our password reset and also the Axios Interceptor and then Logout and maybe the Google Auth as well for the front end. Alright, so without wasting much of our time, let's just continue from where we stop. So in our last video, we showed how to authenticate users, getting the access and the refresh token, putting it in the local storage, and also the light profile page, right, where the users is redirected to after a successful login. So what we are going to do now is we are going to create a folder within our source folder. We're going to create another folder. We're going to call it UTs. Then within UTs, we're going to create a simple JS file. We're going to call it Axios instance.js. All right. So in here, we're just simply going to import Axios. All right. So we're going to import other things, but for now, let's just work with Axios. All right, guys. Quickly, if you've not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. And if you've not give this video a thumbs up, like the video. More videos are also coming. So here we're going to say create a variable cons. We can call it any name we prefer. So I'm going to just call it Axios instance, and we're going to use the Axios.create. All right, and this we're taking an object and is expecting a base URL, which is going to be a base URL. So I'm going to create a variable called base URL. All right, which is just going to be a variable to our base URL, which is our backend base URL. Then here we can say base URL. The next is our content type. So say content dash type is also an object, and it's going to be application.json/json. And lastly, it's going to have the header. All right, this is the important part. This is where we want to pass in our access token. All right, so we know that for authenticated requests or to get maybe authenticated route or API endpoint, you need to send a token along with your request. So that's what we are doing here. So we need to get our tokens from our local storage. So I'm going to call seconds, we're going to call it token, and this is going to come from local storage. So we're going to say local storage.get item, and the name we call it was access. So what we're going to do, we're going to use a ternary operator here. Say if we have access local storage, we want to say json.pos the access token. All right, that's if we have an access token. But if there's no access token, it means provided the user is not logged in yet. So we can set a value to none, or you can set it to be an empty string, anyone you prefer. I think I will make it an empty string. All right, so if there's a token, if we have a token, it means the user is authenticated. We grab the token and we post the token. If there's no token, it means the user is not authenticated, so that would be an empty string. That's the value for token. We also need to get the access token as well. Sorry, the refresh, So I'm going to create another variable, call this one refresh, and let's go token, the same thing. So let me just quickly duplicate this. So but this time we change it to refresh because that's what we use as our key. Same here, refresh. All right, so with that out of the way, in our header is expecting an authorization feed. It's going to depend on if the user is authenticated. We probably need the token, but if there's no token, because it's not all requests that probably needs your token. For endpoints that maybe the user don't need to be authenticated, don't need a token. So in that case, we still need to do the check and say if there's a token for access, whosoever is making this request is authenticated. So in that case, we want to use backticks, and we'll say bearer, then we'll bring in the value which we call token. All right, s we set the value to none, so in that case the authorization feed will be none. There's no token being supplied. Then later on we will come and handle interceptors, where we probably want to handle the refresh token and use it to generate a new access token when the access token expires. Before that, we can easily save this and export is Axios. Is that I can do an export default Axios instance. All right, I can save this, and let's try that in our logout. All right, so our logout in the profile, let's create a mechanism for users to log out using this new Axios instance, not the global Axios instance again. So we're going to do that here. I think I have a logout button already. Okay, so we already have a logout button. So let's just create the handle logout function here. So create a simple variable, call it handle logout. It's going to be an arrow function. We're going to make this an async function. All right. So firstly, we're going to make a call to our API because we have an endpoint for Logout. So I'm going to say respond, and here we're going to await. Now we're going to be using our Axios instance that we just created. So let's just quickly import that. Say import, all right, import Axios instance. All right. So I just noticed that I spelled the utils wrong, which is the name of the folder, but that's not really a big deal. So you can correct yours. All right, so once we have that, we are going to be using that to make our API calls. We're going to call assistant.post. Then this time we're going to specify the endpoint, which is going to be /auth/logout. All right, and make sure you're not putting a slash here at the end of your base URL so that you can append the slash here. So go to /auth, then /logout. All right. Then this is also expecting a payload, which is going to be a refresh token. All right. So let's quickly grab that from our local storage. So I'm going to say const refresh json.pulse local storage.get item refresh. That will give us a refresh item. Then here we can say refresh equals refresh. All right. This should be refresh token. All right, so refresh token equals our refresh. So once we make our API call, then we can do a check and say if our respond.status is equal to 204, which is the successful status that we set in our backend. For a successful response, we are using a 204. I can as well change this to just use, let's just change it to use 200. All right, 200. Okay, then so here we can make it 200. So if it's successful, which is 200, we want to do a couple of things. First, we want to remove all our tokens, delete them, and also the user data also delete them, then and redirect the login page. All right, so we're going to say local storage dot remove item using access. All right, so we remove all these items that we already have saved in our local storage. Once we successfully do that, we want to navigate. So using our navigate function to /login, then we can as well also give a toast message if we want. Let's just give a toast message, and we can say logout successful. And also don't forget to import the toast function. All right, so that's our logout function. Then on our logout button, we are going to have an on-click event handler, which is going to call our handle logout. All right, so that should be the function that's going to handle our logout. Then one more thing we're going to do on this profile page to actually test our authentication, we created one test view in our backend. All right, I call it test auth view. So let's make a call to this endpoint, which requires us to be authenticated for this request to be granted. So that we are going to do in our profile page. We are going to create a simple function, which I will just call get some data, which also can be an async function as well. So in here, we are still going to make a simple API call, which we are going to await using our Axios instance.get. All right, so this time is going to /auth/profile. All right, so that's what I called it. Now, so this is not expecting any data, rather it's giving us some data back, which is in our end is just a simple message of it works. All right, so simply we are going to say if this respond status is 200, that means it was successful. We simply want to just console.log respond.data. Just a very simple function to test our auth endpoint. So once we have that, we are going to call that in our use effect. If we don't have a token, redirect to the login page as fetch this data by calling our get some data function. Right, so this also we need to have a dependency which is depending on our JWT access and also depending on our user. All right, so we are good to go. All right, so let's test out our latest endpoint and latest connection, which is our logout and also this get data. So just start your server, and then before we go to our browser and log in, let me quickly do a little adjustment in our backend. So in the backend, in the settings, let's go to our JWT settings. All right, so the time I'm going to change it. I want it to expire quickly for us to test. So I'm going to say change it to seconds. So let's just set it to 10 seconds. All right, just for us to see the changes that we want to implement next. All right, so once the token expires, let's see how our page will react and all that. So with that change, we can move back, go to our browser, then make sure if you have local storage before, just clear it first and just try and log in again. So my local storage is cleared and our console is here. So let's log in. This user, let me just quickly refresh this. Okay, let me log in again. All right, so we are having a couple of errors. Let's see where this is coming from. All right, a couple of bugs where I restarted the React app. Let me close and restart again. So no API run dev. He actually changed the IP address to become localhost. So that's the one reason why we have in that cause error. So what I just do is go back to the backend settings and make sure that is localhost we are having there, not show you. So make sure it's localhost. So the 2 is also there. The first time was with the IP address, but this time with localhost. That's why we are having that error. So with that fixed, another errors that we fixed also is in the Axios interceptor, the header authorization should be a string. So wrap this as a string. So that's another bug fix that I did. All right, aside that, we can try that and see what we are having. So now we have our login page. Let's log in and test. All right, so if we log in, we see our login successful. Then if we refresh, all right, we see we're able to make call to get our data, which is supposed data. But if we wait a couple of seconds and refresh this page again, so let's just give it some time, then let's refresh one more time. By now the token was expired, so now you are seeing it's getting 401 unauthorized, which means the token has expired already. So that's what we want to handle now with Axios Interceptor. So if we check our local host, our local storage, we still have our tokens, but this time the token has expired. So let's go over to our Axios Interceptor. In here, we are going to use the Axios Interceptor to intercept this instance. Before the request is sent, we want to check if the token has expired. So when the token has expired, we want to, within this, before the request, make request to the refresh token endpoint to get a new access token to replace the old access token. All right, so as we do it together, it's become clearer. If you go over to the Axios documentation, you see along the docs, click on the interceptor. They show us 2 ways we can intercept, not actually 2 ways we can intercept requests or respond before they are completed. All right, so is an example of intercepting your request, do something before the request is sent. And the same for respond also. If you want to do something before the respond is completed, this is how you can do it with Axios. So this is what we are going to be using. All right, so let's go back to our code. Then just below the Axios instance, we are going to intercept the Axios instance, not the global Axios, but the Axios instance dot intercept is at interceptor.request.use, and this we are going to pass in a arrow function as our callback, which is going to expecting one parameter as a request. So once we have this, what we are going to do next, we're going to say if we have a token. So let's check. So if we have a token, we want to make sure that the token is part of the request by saying the request dot headers dot authorize. We want to set it equals to our token, so using backticks bearer. Secondly, we are going to decode the token and get the expired date and time for the access token. All right, so for us to actually see the key from the token, once we decode it, let's go back to our browser. Here you can see our token has expired. That's why we are getting this error. But just go to application, you see the access and the refresh token, and grab the access token and move over to go to your web browser. Just type in jwt.io. It will open a JWT website for you. Then you can scroll down and just paste your token here. If you paste your token, I've already did that before, but let me repaste it. Let me first refresh this. All right, so it's fresh. So if you paste our token here, so just paste your token that you copied in here, and you can see the payload in this token is being released. You can see we are seeing token underscore type access, and you are seeing the key for expired date and time. All right, so you see this is the second since unit expire time. So this is what we want to grab from this token. Our user ID is also here as well. Back to our code. So the package we are going to use to decode our token is jwt-decode. We're going to install it with npm. So just open a fresh terminal. So I don't want to close our server. So we can just clear up this page and make sure we're in the front end, folder, and here we just run npm install jwt-decode. All right, so this will install our package for us. All right, so once that is installed, another package we want to install is djs. All right, npm install djs. This we will use to pause the time and compare it with our current time. So npm install djs. All right, so once we have those two packages installed, we can proceed to decode the token. So in this place, we are going to create a constant, call it user is equals to, first we need to import the, all right, so also we need to also import the djs as well. All right, so once we have those two installed, here we just say jwt decode, then we pass in the token, and this will give us the object containing that key. So we're going to create a variable cons, call this is expired, and this we are going to be using the djs dot units. This will give us the time since. This measures the time since time was set. So here we are going to pass in the user dot expire. All right, this key, and we want to tell the difference, diff with a djs object. All right, then if it's less than 1. All right, so for us to actually see this in action, let's console log is expire. So let's save this. Then and one more thing, we also need to return, because at every instance we need to return the request. All right, so that the request can carry on to completion. So now let's see the value of this is expired. So if we go back to our browser, I think we need to log in. Okay, you can see it's already showing the expired is already showing true because our 401 is unauthorized. So let's just clear out our token one more time. So let's clear out our token. There's no token here. So clear up our browser, and this time let's try and log in again. So once we log in, all right, you can see the is expired is showing false, and we are getting our normal request to get data that is only available to authenticated user. So we'll give it a couple of seconds, and if we refresh again, now our token has expired. You can see we are getting follow one, and now the is expired value is now turned to true. All right, so that's what we want. So when the token is still valid, it is showing false, but once the token expires, turn over to true, which is exactly what we want. So back to our code. So we are going to use this value to decide when to make requests to get a new access token. So we don't need this console log anymore. So what we're simply going to do is say if is expired. So if is not is expired, we simply want to just return back the request. Else, if for some reason it has expired, then we want to make a call to our backend to get a new access token. So I'm going to say cons res, I'm going to say await, but here we are going to be using the global Axios. So let's also import that, not our instance. Okay, it's already imported, so that's what we'll be using. We'll simply say axios.post, and yeah, let's use backticks. We're going to get our base our base URL, all right, /auth/ let's check our backend where, all right, it's like we did not set up retrieving new access token endpoint, but that's very easy to do. So the Rest API simple JWT already has a view for that, so we are going to just import it by saying from Rest framework simple JWT.views. We are going to import the token refresh view. All right, so that's the view. Just import it and set up a path for it. So somewhere here I can just create a simple path. All right, so we have that path set up, so we can save it and head back to our backend, our front end, to make a post request to that route /auth/token/refresh. That's what we set / then secondly we need to send in refresh, which is going to be our own refresh token that we've already imported from local storage. And this, if this request is successful, we can check if the response is a successful response. So by saying if response, the status it's equal to 200, that means everything was fine. So if that's the case, we want to reset our local storage dot set item. Then the value we want to set is for the access, and the key is access. Then the value, it's going to be json.stringify our new access token, which is rest.data.access. We can also console log this to see that. So just before we do this, we can just do console.log rest.data.access. Or let's say rest.data, so we can see what the data is giving for us. All right, so we are saying if it's a successful response, we want to reset that. Then if it's not a successful response, that means the access token, the refresh token on its own have expired. So what we can simply do here is to trigger a logout. All right, so let's just go to here we have our logout function already written out. So what we are going to do, we're just going to grab this function, not just the function, just grab the code within the function, and we can modify them. So we can just grab everything here. All right, so paste this in here, but we are not using tools, we are not navigating. So what we simply want to do is, if the access token request something happen, that means the access token 2 has expired. So we just want to trigger a logout, but this time we're not going to be using the instance, we're going to be using the global Axios.post. This also, let's change this to backticks, then bring in the base URL. All right, and so also we pass in the refresh token. Then if it's a successful response, we also want to clear the access token, clear the refresh token, and clear everything. All right, so that's what we are doing here. Lastly, once we reset the access token, we also want to reset the request.header.authorize. We want to set the value to be our new access token, so which is going to be bearer res.data.access. All right, and we can return the request. All right, I guess that's all we need to do here. So let's save our code, and hopefully everything works fine. All right, so let's give it a try and see if our interceptor will actually do the work that I wanted to do. So let's just re-log in our code. So if we log in again, enter the password. All right, okay, so by now our token should have been expired, but let's just refresh and see if actually it will get expired. All right, you see we've gotten our new access token, and automatically the request was granted. So we are not getting that 401 again, rather our access token is being getting by that request. All right, so everything is working fine. So if we refresh again, we see everything is working fine, so we are not getting that error again, so that's fine. All right, so let's quickly go over what we did to have a better understanding of what we did. So in our Axios instance, we get a token, a both token, both the access token and the refresh token. Then we created a base URL, and we created our Axios instance. Then also in the header, passing the token from the local storage, which is the access token. Then we generated our Axios interceptor, which we intercept the request, and we check if we have a token available. If a token is available, we'll make sure that the token is part of the header. Then we also want to decode the token to get the expired date and time, then pause the date and time and check the time since it was set. If it differs from the current time, so this will return true or false. I will say if it is not true, that means the token has not expired. We want to continue the request. So that's what that means. As if the token has expired, we quickly want to make a background request to our refresh token endpoint with the refresh token. So once we do that, if that is also a successful response, we want to reset our access to our new access token, and also the header authorization token to be the new access token, and return the request as well. Then if the refresh token has expired, if the refresh token has expired on its own, which we set to expire in a day, that means this request will not be a successful request. So for that reason, we want to automatically log the user out by making calls to our logout endpoint and our logout endpoint and also removing all our tokens from our local storage. And remember, by default, if there's no token available in our local storage, and our page will automatically redirect to the logout page. So that's all we did here, and we've tried it out and it's working fine. All right, so up next is implementing the Google Auth front end. All right, so we're going to start working on the sign in with Google. All right, so before we write any code, we're going to be making little changes in our Google console. So head back to your Google console where we set up our Google project to get our client ID and client secret. So you just come over to your project. All right, this is your project, and under your project you see where you have the OAuth2 client ID. So once we click this, we are going to be making little changes to the authorized JavaScript origin. All right, so the new Google Docs, if you read carefully within docs under setup, you see where they have ask us to do that. So key points for local testing or development, they ask us to add HTTP localhost. That's the first one they ask us to add. So bring this one in. So instead of this, we paste that here. Then secondly, the domain of our front end also HTTP localhost, then the port. Now our port for our front end is quite different from 3000. We are not using 3000. Rather, our port currently is 5173. So we're going to grab this port. All right, so change the port to be the new port. All right, so we can actually save that. And the authorized redirect URL, we can also do the same thing, add the other one. All right, so with that done, we can hit save to actually save the changes. All right, so that has been changed. So that's fine. All right, so one more important thing that we need to do is going over to our index.html. All right, in our React app. So within our React app, all right, in the header here, there's one important script that we need to paste here, which is coming from the Google Docs. So I'm going to paste this here. All right, so this is the script that's actually going to give us a lot of almost all the important functions that we need to initialize our Google client. So once you paste this here, you save it. Very important. You can get it from the docs. I'll also paste a link to how you can get it as well, so you can get it here. So once we have that in our code, we need to go over to our sign up page where we want to implement a sign up with Google. On that, what we need to do next is we want to initialize our Google client ID and also initialize the sign up with Google button, and then the script that we just add to our index.html already provides the functions that we need to do that. So we're going to do that just once when our page loads. That's when the page renders, and for that we need use effect. So we're going to import use effect. So once we have our use effect, we can just below our form, and here we can initialize our use effect. So use effect, we just have our arrow function, our arrow comeback function, and the empty array. All right, so because of this empty array, this code is going to be run once. So with that, so we're going to provide a comment for global Google. All right, and then we're going to say google.account.id.initialize, and this is going to take an object of the client underscore ID, which we need to provide, and secondly a callback. All right, so the callback is going to be our function that's going to handle sign up with Google. All right, so this is going to be a callback, and here we are going to provide our own client ID. So for the client ID, you can paste it here directly if you want, which is obviously the client ID that we got from the Google console, so which we already put in our backend. So let's go back to our backend environment variable. All right, so Google client ID, but we need to bring this client ID to the front end. So we can actually put it in a new environment variable for the front end. So inside our front end folder, we can create a .env file. But the thing is, we are using Vite to set up our React, and there's the way Vite handles environment variable is quite different from general React, that is React create React app. So the Vite way is, for every environment variable that you're setting, you must start the word with Vite underscore whatever the name of your variable is. So I'll say client ID. I'll set it equals to our client ID. So I'm going to just copy and paste it here. All right, so that's the client ID. Then I can set that and save that. Then within our code here, where we need it, we are going to simply just do import, lowercase, import.meta.env the name of our environment, which is going to be vit underscore client id. All right. So this is how vit handles environment variable. Then this callback function, we don't have it yet, so we're going to create it. So I'm simply going to just say sequence handle signing with Google, which is going to be an arrow function. All right, so let's just leave it at that for now. All right, so with that initialize, another thing we want to also initialize is our signing with Google button. So we can also do that with the same script. We're doing that, we can say google.account.id.render button. Right, within here I'm going to paste in code. So all right, so let's work. So here we're going to say document.getElement by id, the div that we want to render the signing with Google button, and we have a slight attributes that we can use to customize the look of our button. So here we have the theme to outline, size large, then the text that we want. So here you can change the text to be sign in with Google, sign up with Google, or continue with Google. So anyone you prefer. Then the shape, you can set the shape. Then the width, also you can set the width. All right, so this will help us render our button. So we want to make sure that we have this div with the ID of sign in div. So just below where we have sign in with Google buttons, we don't need this. We can take this out, and here this div we can give it an ID and the attribute of sign in div. All right, which should match the ID we are using in that render button function from Google. All right, so we can save that. So let's walk through what we just did. All right, so the new documentation of Google actually makes integrating with the sign in with Google button very easy. So they give us a script that handles a lot of the logic out of the box for us. So that's the script that we actually added to our index.html. So from that script is where we're actually getting access to this Google object, this global Google object. All right, so that's we are using to initialize our Google client and also to initialize our Google button as well. All right, so with this out of the way, we should be able to see our button displayed. So let's head over to our page, Logout. So let's go to the sign up page because that is where we are displaying that button. All right, so let's see. So let's scroll down. Beautiful. You see we are getting our continue with Google button. All right, so that's good. So this is the Google button that was rendered with that render button function. So let's write the logic to actually process this button. All right, so to the callback function that is going to handle our response. So here is taking a parameter of response, which is obviously going to be the response from Google. So this has to be an async function. All right, so what we are going to do, we are just going to console to see what the response is going to be, what Google is going to send us, which obviously is the access token. So I'm going to say console.log response.jet. All right, so this callback function is going to be coming with the response, which is going to contain the access token that we need to retrieve the profile credentials. But let's see what we're gonna have. So I think everything is set. So let's go and test this out first. Let's refresh this page one more time. So once we refresh this page, so let's click on the continue with Google. All right, so it's prompting us to choose an account. So make sure the account you are choosing is one of the test user that you set up in the Google console. So I'm going to pick this, which is obviously one of the things. Say confirm you want to sign up into the Django Rest API Auth service. So once I confirm, you can see what was sent back as our response. So let's review our response. So you can see the response has client ID, which matches our client ID that we are sending them. You see the credentials. The credential is the part that contains the access token that we want to retrieve. All right, so everything is working fine. So what we want to do is just send this access token to our backend. So we want to handle the access token in our backend. So I can simply create a variable here, call it payload, which is going to be our response.credentials. All right, so this contains the access token and we want to send it to our backend. So we're going to make an API request to our Google endpoint. So I'm going to say this is called server respond. It's going to be await Axios. So we're going to be using the global Axios.post to the endpoint that we want to make post request to, which is http //localhost 8000/API/v1/auth. Then we have an endpoint for Google. So if you're not in the video, if you've not watched the video where we created the backend endpoint to handle Google requests, you can check out the previous video for that. All right, so this will be the endpoint that was going to handle this request, and this endpoint is expecting one post request containing our access token, which is going to be our payload that we are sending. All right, so this token that we are going to send to the backend is going to verify this token and on our behalf make requests to Google with the token to get the actual profile data, right? Or rather, decode the token to get the actual profile data and send it back to our front end. All right, so we can, once we have this, we can see what the server response is. So I can console.log server response, all right, to see what we are getting back from our own backend. So I don't need this console log. Okay, I can take this out. So we are getting the access token or the ID token from Google, sending it to our backend. Our backend is going to do its thing, decode the token, verify the token, decode it, and get the user profile data and send it to the front end for us. And obviously, the user data will be generated in our backend as well. All right, so let's go back and try it one more time. So come over to this place. Let's just refresh this page. All right, so let's try one more time. Try it one more time. So this time, let's choose this very account that we choose. All right, no request was made. Oh, sorry, I didn't save my component, my sign up component. So let me save that. So sorry about that. I didn't save that. That's why we're still getting our previous changes. So let's just quickly refresh. All right. So now let's sign up again. So this time I'll choose another test user. So let's choose this test user. All right. Yes. Confirm. Okay. So let's check our response. We have its status response of 200, but our data is empty. All right, so let's check. I guess something is wrong in our backend. All right, we have a response of data. All right, so we have a little bug in the backend. The login was actually successful because if you checked the admin, so log into the admin and then check the admin part of the users, you can see the user with that email was created, which is the tech James. If you check the provider, you can see the provider is Google. All right, so that's to show that the user was actually created in our backend, but we have little issues because the user was not returned back to us. So let's quickly fix that together. Then in the backend social auth, in the UTs, this is where we are logging the user. We are calling this login underscore show user, which is supposed to return for us this data. But the issue is at this point, what we're supposed to do is store this. Let's say this should be results equals to whatever the login underscore show user is going to give us, and we are going to return that result. All right, so that's the issue. So just quickly return whatever the result is, and also don't forget for the login, that is if the user already have an account here, instead of this we can just save it in a result variable, which we're going to store the return values for this login underscore show user. Then we simply return the value back, return the result. All right, so that is that. So fix that if you have this put, and with that, let's go and try it one more time. So if we go back, let's just refresh. All right, so we already have that user generated in our backend, but if we try to log in with the user, we'll still be able to get the user's account. So let's try the James Tech group, which is the Tech James 633. So let's try and log in with this, and we should get our data back. So let's check our console. So if we check our console, you can see the data is now coming from our backend, and you can see the data that is coming. We have the access token, the email, the full name, and the refresh token as well. All these were generated by the backend when they get the Google token. All right, so it's actually working fine. So let's try for the second user. So let's just refresh and try for another user. All right, so if you go back and say sign up with Google, and we choose this tech and this heading to tech group, if we check our admin, we don't have a user with that account here. So once we come back and we refresh and we hit sign in with Google and we just choose the email, all right, you see the response that we got back. We have the data as part of our payload. Our response, you can see the access token, the email, the full name for the user, and the refresh token as well. And if you come back to the Django admin and just refresh, we now have 9 users. You can see that user was generated, which the provider of this user is Google now. So for this user to log in, this user have to use Google as his auth provider. All right, so our Google Auth is working fine. So what we actually need to do once we're getting this data, the rest is just to store them in local storage and redirect our user to the appropriate location. All right, so the same thing that we did for our normal email and password login. I think we already have that logic of storing the data. All right, so let's just grab from this place where we have this composing this user object and checking if our normal response is 200, saving it in local storage and redirecting the user. So in our response with Google, all right, here we are going to do the same thing. So we're going to paste that and just restructure it. So this time instead of response, I want is server response. So going to be server response dot data dot email, all right, and server response dot data dot full name. All right, so we have that object, and that object we want to also check if server response, the status is 200, because our server response also have a status of 200, puts the data in our local storage. All right, for development, this is what we're doing for now. And also the access token, the refresh token, this time is going to be coming from response data for server response data. So with that done, we simply redirect to the dashboard and then give a simple message of login successful. So I think that's all we need to do. So if we try it again with any of these users that we have before, we are successfully directed to our dashboard. All right, that's to show our login was successful. Then if we inspect our local storage, you can see the data we also there, the email, which is the Henry to Tech Group, and the name also, which is Agblao Henry. All right, so that's working fine. So what we're going to do next is the reset password. All right, so quickly we are going to build out the form to collect the registered email from the user so that we can send an email to reset their password to that email. So let's bring in use state. We're going to have a simple state called email and set email, which is just expecting a single string, just one string. And we're going to have a simple handle submit async function, which is going to take in E as the event parameter. And we're going to have a normal default either prevent default. All right. So here we'll process the logic of sending requests to our backend. But right here, we just need to provide a single form. So let's just have an H2, say enter your registered email address. All right, so here we'll provide the form. So we've created several forms, so I don't want to bore you with the stress of rewriting the logic to create forms. So let me just copy and paste. All right, so we have the form tag, which we are still using our normal wrapper. We have a form on submit, which is taking that a handle form, just the label, email address, name, email, value, email. On change, we are calling our set email to set either targets the value. You have one simple button, which is just send. All right, that's all for this. So what we need to do is to make our API call to send the email to our backend. So first of all, we're going to check if we have an email string, that is if email has been provided. Then we want to make our API call. It comes rest equals to await. And here we're going to be using our Axios interceptor. So let's quickly import it. So import Axios. So once we import our Axios instance, then we can use it here, say Axios instance.post, and the endpoint this time is going to go to /auth/password reset, and the payload is going to be an object of email to be our own email. All right, so we'll check if we have a response dot status equals to 200. That means everything goes well. We simply just want to return a message. All right, so we need our toastify object and function. All right, so here we can use our toast.success, and here the message is going to be a very simple message of a link to reset your password has been sent. All right, so a link to reset your password has been sent to your email. So that's all we want to do, and once we are done with that, we want to also clear the state. So we're going to reset email back to an empty string. All right, so that's all we need to do here. So let's go and see forget password. So in our sign up, we don't have a link, so let's create a simple link for people to go over to their reset, not sign up in our login page. So let's just put in our login page. So in our login page, just below the submit button for the login, we just paste the link to the forget password page. So we just paste that here. So which is just a simple link of forget password. We are using the link tag. So we also need to import this from the React DOM where we are importing navigate, import link. All right. So that will take us to slash forget password, which is obviously will set up the rat already in our app.js. Let's check. All right. We already have the rat now as well. Forget underscore password. So back to our browser, we are still logging. Our login session is still active, so let's log out. So our logout was successful, so we are no longer logging. We are seeing the forget password link. So show our logout was successful. If we check our local storage, our tokens should no longer be there, so they are no longer there. So our logout was actually successful. So let's go over to the forget password. Our form is here, which is obviously fine. So you can style yours better, you can position it better and make it look more elegant and all that. So let's try and reset a password for one of our login users. So before we start testing out our reset and forget password, let's first set up the component that when a user clicks on the reset password link will be redirected to, so that they can reset their password. All right. So what we're going to do is within our component, we are going to create one more component, and this component we're going to call it reset password JSS. All right, this is just going to be a simple React functional component. So let's set up the route for this component. So in our app.js, we add one more route. So let me just grab this. So this one is going to go to slash password reset confirm and slash UID slash token. All right. So this is going to be the route that's going to handle our reset password. And here we need to bring in the reset password component. All right. So I guess that is auto imported already for me. All right. That's auto imported for me. So with that saved, here we can proceed to quickly set up components. So let's bring a use state, and then also we're also going to import from React DOM. We're going to import the use navigation. Then we also need the use parent. All right. So first we're going to create a simple state, which we're going to call new passwords and set new password. It's going to be a simple state that has password initially to be an empty string and a confirmed password. All right, then we can initialize our navigation to be use navigate, and also our parents. We're going to be getting the UID, and the token. All these are going to be coming from the use parents. All right. So the concept is once we send the reset password link to the user, when the user clicks on that link, automatically the link should redirect the user to this particular component page that we are setting up with the UID and the token as part of the URL. All right. So we're going to grab those two credentials from the URL parameters, then we add it along with the new password that the user wants to reset. Then we need the handle change and handle submit, because we're still going to create a simple form for the password and the new password. All right, so here we're going to have a simple handle change function, which, as we already know, is going to recall our set new passwords. All right, to set our new passwords. Then also we're still going to have a simple data object, which is going to carry the real value and key. So we have password is going to be our new passwords.password. Then we're going to have a confirm password, which is going to be our new passwords.confirm password. And we're going to have a UID B64. All right, because this is the key value that our backend is expecting. So you can always check backend the keys that the backend serializers are actually expecting. All right, so make sure the keys match. So this is going to be the UID from parents, and it's expecting a key of token, which is going to be our token for parent. All right, so once we have this data, we can send this to our backend. So here I can simply create my handle submit, which is going to be an async as usual function that takes in simple event. We're going to have the e.prevent default. Then here we are going to make our API call. All right, so let's leave this for now. So let's bring in our form. Since we've created form severally, so I don't need to bore you by rewriting how to create form again. So I'm going to just grab from the form we already have and then paste it here. All right, so we have a simple form. We have a div called form container, which we already created a CSS type for this class. Then a wrapper class as well. A simple heading of enter your new passwords. A form which is already calling our handle submit. We have a simple form group, new password, name password, value password. So the value should be new passwords dot password, or you can easily destructure it and get the password from it. So value is new password or password. On change equals to handle change, which is a handle change function that we already created. All right. So same for this, name, confirm password, value, new password or confirm password, and all that. Then we have our submit button. All right. So that's it for the form. So let's come over to the handle submit. Here we're going to create a cons response, which is going to be an await of our Axios instance. So we need to import our Axios instance. All right, that we ought to import it dot patch. All right, this is a patch request, not a post request. To slash author slash set dash new password. All right, slash, then we'll pass in the data. All right, so if this will get a result, it's gonna be a response the data. All right, so we're gonna say if the result, the status is equal 200, then we want to redirect to the login page with a message. All right, so the success message which is going to be coming from our backend. All right, so we navigate to the login with the toast message of the results.message. All right, okay, fingers crossed. Let's save all the files and let's go and try it out. Right, so let's try and reset our password. Email, we have an email called testuser7@company.com. Then let's try that. Let's hit send. Okay, let's expect and find out if something is wrong. Okay, cannot hit property of undefined. Forget password line 10. Okay, let's see what the response are. Let's say console.log the full response. Save this, and let's also see if an API call was made to a backend. No call was made to a backend, so let's see what's going on. So let's quickly refresh this. All right, we have a couple of bugs. One of the bug is in our Axios Interceptor. Here we are saying if we have a token, we want all this to happen. But if there's no token, we are supposed to be returning the request without a token. So this return is in the wrong position. It's supposed to be outside the if block. So if there is no token, we still want to return the token directly. We want to return the request directly, sorry. So that's why we're having that cancel token error, some kind of error. So that's fixed that. Then head back to this place, back to the forget password console, so be console.log. Then secondly, the resetting of the image should be after successful submission. All right, so that's saved. So let's try one more time. So let's go back to our browser and let's refresh, and this time let's try and reset passwords for test user. So if we hit send, and this will take a couple of times, so obviously we're supposed to have something like a loading state, but we don't have that. But you can see that our request was sent successfully. A link to reset your password has been sent to your email, and we can get that our response was also successful with our message response also. All right, so if we go to check our email and let's refresh here, you can see a message, reset your password link was sent a few seconds ago. So if we click this, we should see the link. All right, so this is actually the link that user ought to click, but there's one problem. The link is still showing the domain of the backend. So obviously when you deploy your backend and your frontend, will be sharing the same domain, so our current site will be able to get the frontend domain. But for now, just copy this link and come over to a fresh tab, paste it, but change the frontend domain link to be that of the backend. So it should be localhost 5, let's check and confirm, 5173, right, slash. So that's our front end domain. So 5173 slash password reset, then slash this and that. So let's hit send, obviously. So this takes us to our reset password, and here we can decide to reset our new password. So let me change my password to something else. Let me change it to James 4321, James 4321. And if reset was successful, we should be able to redirect to our login page. So let's hit submit. And all right, let's check. So if we hit submit, nothing is happening, no error. Let's confirm in our backend and see if okay, patch request was actually made and the response was 200 successful, but our redirect never worked. Navigate. So let's see what our response is. So let's say console.log response. Alright. So let's hit submit. Okay. Password reset successfully. Oh, sorry, the status is not within the data. So that is on me. So it should be respond the status, not result the status. So respond the status equals 200. We want to redirect and we want to give our result message. So let's save this. So let's repeat the circle one more time because refresh this. So let's repeat the circle again. So let's provide the username, password, hit send. So we'll provide a loading state, show loading. Obviously send an email. All right, so we have our message. So we can go back to our email and refresh this. All right, so we get a new email message with a new link. So we can grab this link. Yeah, but this time change our domain to be our front-end domain. We can cancel out this, send. Obviously it takes us to this page. So here we can change our password again, say test 4321 and we hit send. Right, so we were directed to the login page which shows that it was successful, but our message is not being displayed. As expect. Oh, toast is not defined. So it's actually worked fine, but I forget to import our toast, but our password was reset. So if we save and we try out the new password, so let's try to log in with the new password, which is test 4321. And if we hit the login, all right, so our login was successful with our new password, and let's log out again. So we have a couple of bugs, but everything is working fine. We can reset our password, we can get our reset links, and everything is working fine. All right, so I know we have a couple of bugs and some issues, but the main focus here is not React tutorial, is actually our backend API, which are Auth API. That's our main focus. So we just build this simple, lightweight React app to just test out those API. So in a real production applications where you are working in a real production application, obviously the React feature will be more than this. There will be loading states, keeping track of submitting and all that. So you have to do all that. But for this, I think this is okay for us to test out our APIs. And so far, all our endpoints are working. Login, logout, reset password, social authentication, all are working. So I'm going to end this video here because it's already getting too long. Thank you guys for watching. More tutorials are coming. Don't forget to subscribe and also give this video a thumbs up. See you guys in the next video.